This video is for MYP design students who are at the tail end of their summative assessment task, and they're preparing their documents and they're working on Criterion D Strand 4, and they want to get top marks. They want to get 8 out of 8. So I'm just going to coach you through and give you some tips and pointers about how to achieve success for this assessment task. So first of all, let's start with the assessment criterion. It says here, explain the impact of the solution on the client/target audience. So the key words here is explain, that's one of the command terms, IB command terms, and impact. So how do you, we're going to define that word impact of the solution or the product that you've made on somebody else. So first of all, what you're going to be doing, if you're clever, you've actually made something and you've presented it to a client or a target audience. But way back in Criterion C, you created a test. If you're clever, you should have included some kind of a question or asked for a quote of some sort about how your product has had some kind of a positive impact on the person who has actually been using or engaged or looked at your product. So this, if you're getting quotes from other people, like another person who's involved, another stakeholder, it actually carries a lot more weight than if you're just writing this for yourself. So if you can enlist the help of some of your friends here, it'll be much easier, but it's also more powerful. So be sure to ask the question, explain what impact this product has had on you, and get your friends to actually give you some sentences about how their life is better because of your product, or because of your solution, my problem is now solved. That's the kind of information you're seeking from your friends. A couple of other bullet points here I've made here. First of all, you need to, before you explain the impact, you need to identify the impact or impacts. So think about some specific examples of how your product has actually helped somebody or helped a group. So if you can just start with the identifying some kind of impacts, and then you can start adding more detail to it and then explaining. So a couple of ways to help do this. First of all, you can revisit the original problem. So way back in Criterion A, you would have explored the original problem. So just revisit that. What was the original problem, and did your solution actually help solve that problem or contribute to solving that initial problem? And you could easily write a paragraph about that. The next one is you could also revisit your design brief. So at the end of Criterion A, you created a paragraph which was a design brief about what you were going to make, why you were going to make it, when you were going to make it, who you were making it for. So you could just copy and paste that design brief and then talk about if you actually achieved that or not. The next thing is, again, I'll just keep going into explaining how your solution has had some kind of improved your target audience or your client. Now, if you're still struggling with like the word count and you haven't got enough text, you can also start thinking about different stakeholders. So think of whatever product you made, think about how it actually impacted you as a person. Have you had an increase in knowledge or increase in skills because of your involvement with this project? And to be quite frank, this is the last assessment piece, and this is where it's kind of like a reflection, and you're looking back at your project and the whole process. So what the teachers actually want to read here is that this process has actually been beneficial, and it's actually had a really positive impact on you as a student, as a learner, as the creator, as the designer. So you can talk about yourself a little bit here. That would, if you're stuck for some ideas. Another thing is just get some of your friends. So ask your friend, it's like, can you please look at my product, and can you please explain how this has actually had some kind of an impact on you? Also get your teachers involved, any other people who could kind of help you get a body of text here would be fantastic. Okay, let's go into the definition of impact. The definition of an impact is an effect on, or a change, or a benefit. So you're thinking about your product has actually caused something else to happen. That's the idea of having an impact. Now, your impact can actually be positive, but it also can be negative as well. For the sake of this report, you're looking at a lot more of the positives. Now let's go down here. So here, I'm just trying to get you in the mindset of, like, you know, when you watch a movie and it actually made you think a lot, or it changed you in some way. That's the kind of tone that we're looking for in Criterion D Strand 4. Now, I just did a quick search and talked about the impact of a mobile phone, just to try and illustrate the concept of a mobile phone or a smartphone. Has it actually, something like that kind of a product has definitely contributed to a person's life. So has a smartphone made your life better in some ways? Identify the different ways. Has your smartphone contributed and has a negative impact on your life? So I'm just using this here to try and get you thinking in that kind of the mindset of your product or your solution actually having some kind of effect on others, identifying the ways that it has impacted or affected others, and go into detail and explain these effects. Okay, so here is an example of a grade 6, a year 1, MYP year 1 student. Can see that this student has actually got a few friends. This student made some kind of a project which is to help the whales, and you can see she's got quotes from 2 of her friends that actually said, yes, your project has actually had a positive impact. So that's the best way to address Strand 4. Here's an example of a student who's just written a nice paragraph about how his project, his product, has had an impact on clients. The client, he actually made something for a client. So how it has actually contributed to the client and how it's actually solved the initial problem. Okay, I'm just going to conclude now with the differentiation and the assessment. Now, when you do this, if you just outline how your product has had some impact, the maximum grade you're going to get is 4 out of 8. But if you can explain this impact, so that just means more words, more details, you can get a top mark of 6. That means you can get 6 out of 8, but the difference here is if you've had some guidance, if some other person or a teacher has helped you write this. But if you've done it all on your own, if you explain the impacts of your product on clients and target audience, you will get yourself an 8 out of 8. So just looking at the command terms in a progression. So first of all, identify some of the ways that your product has impacted, and then outline. And if you can outline these impacts, you'll get a score of 4. But then if you can flesh this out a little bit more and expand upon it, describe and then turn it into explaining the impacts, you'll get a score of 8 out of 8. And that is the last assessment criteria for MYP design. Good luck with your summative assessment task.